I think we will get started. Thank you very much for that intro, Pascal. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Nick Dugdale-Moore. I'll be your moderator today. UFI Connects, if this is your first one, is a series of online talks, panels, and discussions that we began back in March as COVID-19 closed down our regular events. We run these sessions to do our share in keeping the industry connected, up to date, and ready for the recovery. And on that note, I just want to mention today that we released a report. I'm going to try and share my screen to show you. Hopefully you can see now, which shows the various countries around the world which are opening, which are currently open, which are open with various restrictions, and of which are still closed, because we have increasing amounts of countries that are opening up. So please, you can find this on the UFI website on the main coronavirus page, which is here. I'll put the link in the chat below. There's lots of information here, the framework, the good practice guidance, and here it is, the Exhibition Industry Market Status Tracker, which was very snappily title today. There we go. So back to today, we are talking about sales and selling in the new normal. We have three very professional speakers for you. Hope you may be familiar with. Helen Harlow, the director of the Benchmark Collective, who are passionate about exhibition sales, specialists in rebooking sales, working with many of the leading organizers. Raoul Monks from Flume Sales Training. He's one of the co-founders there. Again, very well known in the industry. And Leenhouts, the owner of Sales and Pepper from the Netherlands, who again has got many, many years in our industry working with a lot of the leading organizers. So just want to say hello now to Raoul, Helen, and Han. You can unmute yourselves and say hello. Great. So
hello.
Perfect.
Hi there.
Hi guys.
So I can see many of you saying hello in the chat. That's great. The way this works is our speakers will speak in turn. If you have questions for them, please put it in the chat below. And then the UFI team will come to you afterwards and you can speak to them directly. So after they're going to speak for about 8 minutes each, and then we'll hopefully have an interactive Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Han.
Well, Nick, thank you very much. I'll put on my 8 minutes because 8 minutes is all I've got from you. So thank you very much. I will start sharing my screen, and I would say a warm welcome to everybody. Hello, bienvenue, salam alaikum, ni hao in all the languages. Welcome to this session. I was sharing my screen before, and then Nick said, do you have 70 slides? And the answer is, yes, I do. I do have 70 slides because I want to go back to the time where we had live communication, where we were saying, oh, do not do death by PowerPoint. Today's but death by PowerPoint. And so let me just kick off. This is what I used to do, being in front of people on stages or training people who look like this. Well, this seems like from another age. People sitting close and next to each other. By the way, look at the right picture. Create the right environment. It is not very in contact with how the people are behaving. This is what I normally do, training people on how to behave at the trade show floor. But hey, no surprise, my agenda was empty since late March. This is what I do now every now and then, being in a green screen studio. This is one of the biggest in the Netherlands, but it still feels funny to be that. A little bit about myself. What do I sell? I sell direction and energy, clean energy. That's actually what I do. Let me start. Well, I'm actually wondering, how are you really doing in this time? I mean, looking on the right, this is the way we are. This is the way we operate on a daily basis. So how are you? Well, I cannot communicate with you. Normally, when I would be in front of a live audience, I would ask that to someone. I say, hey, how are you doing? What's keeping you awake at night? I cannot do that now. Well, through the chat, but then I have to go out and stuff like that. So we are not doing that. This is how I feel every now and then. This is how I feel. I mean, this is a strange times. And when I look at the newspaper every now and then, or at media, you see people are asking back to life. Nick was showing you how companies are opening up, because yes, that is true. In Belgium, they said they have forgotten about us. In the Netherlands, I hear a lot like, oh, what about IKEA? That is open, but we are not open. People are screaming to reopen. And that is a good thing, I would say. And we're all waiting for that green light, that definite green light, let's reopen. But then the magic doesn't happen yet, because the narrative the last days and weeks and months were about safety, risk, measurements, infections, hand sanitizers. Whereas in order to do business, you have to be sort of happy. Actually, this is tip 0, be happy and talk about positive things, desire, opportunities, leads, because we create lead platforms. I mean, this is what concert halls look like, empty. The streets are empty, the squares are empty, but we want to party, we want to organize nice events, we want to organize events where we interact with people. But this is what we're actually doing now, sitting in front of a camera. That's what I'm doing now from The Hague in the Netherlands, connecting with you in the world. Yeah? But this is the old-fashioned thing. Well, and I'm saying old-fashioned, this is what we used to do. And this is what we used to build and used to contribute to. Real shows where people do real business. But yes, this is the reality now. And sometimes, I don't know how you feel, sometimes I feel like this. Yeah. And where is the taste, the touch, and the smell? Where is it that, well, the wonderful thing which live communication is, of course, because nowadays it's all about mouth masks, hand sanitizer, and so on. Sometimes I feel like this, but hey, do not give up. Everything's going to be all right. Now, you are all muted, but my question would be, who gave us that song which was about everything's going to be all right? Yeah? Well, let me give away the secret.
How about?
It is indeed Mr. Bob Marley. Everything's going to be all right. Well, is everything going to be all right? I hope so. And I've got good faith. Good news is coming. I would say, away with the fear. Let's be happy again. Good vibes are coming, and it's time for a change. You see, Nick, this is how I do the many slides. I'm going so fast. This number, we see this number a lot. We see this number a lot. And it's all about this number, the numbers of COVID. But I saw another number, 1.5 or 1.6 million exhibitors impacted by this COVID. And I was thinking about that number. I was saying, okay, let's do some crazy math. 1.6 million impacted exhibitors with an average show day of 3, yeah, makes 4.8 million lost show days in the last month. Average team growth, 5 people, yeah. So 24 million lost show days. If they have an average of 10 quality conversations, and that is not a lot, to be honest, that's what I train people for, that makes 240 million intentions to do business all gone up into thin air. Well, that's the question. That is the question. Where did they go? The budget for it? Well, some was lost, of course, because of half cancelled shows. And where is the need for the context? Let's not forget that. This is also a tip. There was a need for contact, 240 million intentions. Yeah. So my tip number 1, use that intention, use that energy to bring them back, because there are lions in the field. Because what they do, there are intention, and they say, well, no, let's do it online. Let's do everything online. And I'm not against online, we are online, but live, I would say, is better. It's better. Well, and you have hybrid events, 2D, 3D, that's the big question. Is 2D better than 3D? Well, I know which direction we're heading and which we should do. We should have success, and we should go for that success. Start fishing again and help our clients start fishing again. Reach for the moon. And the big question is, when will you return? When will all those people be back? Yeah? All we have is now, and all we have is today. So let's think out of the box and grab that desire which is there. People want to do business. They want to make money. It's often said that trade shows are let's say the motor of the economy, the highway to success. And I agree. So let's try to back up that claim. So why are trade shows and events the highway to success? Once we know that, we can share that with our audience, and then they might come back, because I'm not convinced that once we do the green light, once we say, because people might be tired with all this online stuff, they might not come back. And let's look at it. I mean, if you look at it, screen talk versus live talk has another effect. Yeah, emotional touch. What does it do for deals? Physical touch. What is the effect on the deals when you don't have physical touch? All senses. I mean, did you get ever emotional after a Zoom call? People get into mood of buying. That's what we want people to do. Create real memories. I hope you will remember this session, but will you? What should happen here that you actually remember the session? Probably that we all open up our microphones and sing at the end of the session. Nick, that's a suggestion. Everything's going to be all right. Would be something with more than 200 people singing that song. And do you have trust through screens? That's the big question. So let's create fear of missing out for trade shows and events. So redefine, that's tip number 2, redefine the live communication pitch. Why are we so beautiful? And when we have green light, may the force be with you, I always say, because people, we should share reasons for to people why they come back. This is my 8 minutes and I'm almost done. Yeah, so we give them reasons why to come back, and how can we seduce them to come back to the business boosting platforms. I mean, and why will visitors come back? Let's not forget those. Why will visitors come back? So this is the last thing. 5 reasons for exhibitors to come back, 5 reasons for visitors. Remember the 24-hour. Everything is going to be all right. 240 million live compics, exhibitors, visitors. Let's not forget about them. This was me. Back to Nick.
Wow. Thank you, Han. A lot to take in, a lot of delivery, but like certainly when you look at it just in terms of the numbers, you know, 240 million lost sales opportunities, if you like. I mean, this is huge. And obviously the basics of you know, what we do and what we can offer at our trade shows that no other marketing channel can is vital to kind of keep in touch with those basics. Okay, so moving on without further ado to Helen. And just to remind you, if you have a question for any of the speakers, please put them in the chat down below. Thanks.
There we go. You can hear me now, right, Nick?
Yep.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is an absolute honour to be asked to speak by Nick. Nick and I met at Confex 2020 for the first time, and he saw the Rebook team in action on the floor plan, and you were quite intrigued, I think, weren't you, Nick, to find out what was happening here, what the excitement was, what the buzz around was the sales lounge, and we just ended up having a bit of a chat about it. So that's
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how we met, and I'm honoured to be asked today. So I've been in exhibition sales for 10 years now, and prior to that I represented lots of different brands on stands at exhibitions, so I had a real affinity with that world of events. But my main career used to be for 20 years as a professional performer in West End musicals and international tours. So you may think, what a change, from going from dancing, singing, acting 8 times a week on stage into sales at exhibitions. But really, absolutely not a change in a way, because I like to, obviously that was my passion, and I was very lucky to do what I love to do for so many years. And I always thought I'll never find anything that I was as passionate about, but I am really lucky and privileged to say that I have in the form of rebooking. And I know that sounds really emotional, and you might think, what, she loves rebooking, is she insane? And yeah, I am slightly insane, but I see a real familiar and similar skill set in what I did before and what I do now. So I'm not saying that I tend to tap dance down the aisles at events when I'm rebooking at pharmaceutical exhibitions, but I certainly deploy a sense of theatre craft and what I've learned from those days on the show floor, which is well received. So my area of expertise, as Nick said, is in rebooking sales, and I've been in 42 different countries, 42 different industries, both B2B and B2C, and 23 locations worldwide with measurable results. So I'm talking from experience here in what I'm experienced at, and I really hope that I can give you guys some insight into selling, the secrets of selling now, because it all applies, whether it was with the skills that I've learned over the years, whether they're before lockdown or now, they still apply. And then I have some, hopefully, like little gems that we can make sure that are really relevant to the now as well. So I think over the years, we've experienced, myself and my team, Emma, Debbie, Katie at Benchmark Collective, we've experienced organisers who are at different stages with their rebooking strategies. You know, some are really advanced, some are really, you know, set, and they have a really established rebooking culture. And there's been others where we can see that there's sort of gaps in the way they're doing things. Perhaps they could have done them better. And our job really is to clear that pathway for them to successful rebooking cultures and putting those best practices into place. So we've done a fair amount of that through the years, and we've seen a fair amount of, like I say, some teams up here with rebooking, some teams not quite, you know, using it as a prime opportunity like they could. And there's really a lot of reasons for that. You know, some teams are not given any focus by their event director or their portfolio director. Some teams might feel unenthused to rebook. Some teams might feel exactly not motivated really to do the rebook. And it's important that you, as an organisation, are addressing all of these things so that you're creating best practices around the this opportunity in the sales cycle. So that's where we come in really, and we are, I think, the motivators of sales teams when they need it. We like to inject positivity into them. It can be, sales is a really hard job. I have absolute respect for all of you out there who are sales and account managers. It is a hard graft job at times. You really, you know, exhaust yourself trying to make everybody happy and trying to do the best job you can. So I've got absolute kudos for you. So we kind of see ourselves as helping you in your motivation, your confidence, and all of those things. And we like to think that we leave rebooks with a positive feeling among the team that you can take back into your office throughout the sales, throughout the year as well. So that's a bit about the positive message that we deliver, the bit about the fact that we devise and we embed rebook cultures for organisations to carry through. And I kind of see us as those change directors, assisting EDs, assisting PDs to take some pressure off of them and their teams on site and support in whichever way they need us. So how do we create sales success? Well, training obviously is an important part of everyone's skill sets and developments, no matter how long you've been doing a specific job for. When I was dancing for 20 years, I didn't stop training. I went to class every single day so that I could be at the top of my game and make sure that, you know, I was getting the jobs that I wanted to get. So it's the same with anything that we do. And we obviously, when we're training sales teams across the globe, we're using all those familiar techniques that we all know: discovery questioning, identifying needs, putting the customer at the absolute centre of everything is a top priority. But when we rebook, we tap into the exhibitor's preferences specifically. So as a external team of rebookers, we have it sort of particularly sometimes harder than perhaps the account manager, because we have that limited time, that 2 or 3 days to make that connection. So we put a great importance on learning about the customer's beliefs, the customer's preferences, and the customer's social style, because if we can adapt ourselves and be versatile to them, then that really helps build that rapport and build that trust very quickly. So it was funny because somebody asked me once, how do you do what you do? Like, you just come in, you are like a storm, you know, a good storm, going around the exhibition floor, and everybody seems to be, you know, engaged and happy to come back for the next edition. What is it? What's your secret? What are you doing? And, you know, I actually for some time didn't realise what it was that I was doing until I sat down with my colleagues Emma, who's been rebooking at the longest out of all, she won't mind me saying, like 25 years. And we sat down and we really tried to identify what it was. And it is all to do with tapping into the individual social style of that customer and really identifying how it is that they like to be sold to. So taking yourself out of that comfort zone of the way you like to do things, and instead thinking, how does Mr. Smith like to be sold to? What can I do that will resonate with him? What can I do that will reassure him of my intention? You know, so I'm not just getting money out of him. I'm not just getting him, you know, I'm not doing an Alan Partridge, getting him to sign on the dotted line, and then next week he's going to cancel because he feels too pressured into something in the moment. And I think that's also a fear of some account managers. You know, it's too pressured in the moment. They've only got 2 or 3 days to sign these contracts. Let's not rush them. Let's not do that. That's not what we're trying to do either. It's all in the personalization of the experience for that buyer. So we have 2-3 days, obviously, to connect, as I've said. And we do all those traditional techniques that you guys know and that I'm sure you do every single day in your jobs. But we also have incredible listening skills, and I'm sure you think you do too. But when you really sit down and think about it, are you listening through and through to what that customer is saying and responding in the moment? It's that whole 2 ears, 1 mouth approach by the Greek philosopher Epictetus. So it's that whole taking yourself back there and doing that on a regular basis for yourself, just to make sure that you haven't switched off, you haven't become on autopilot, and you are always addressing your listening skills and improving them. So to sum up, I've got 3 top tips for you that I think for selling events right now. You know, I haven't talked a whole lot about, obviously, lockdown, what's going on in the world right now, but everything I've said I feel is still relevant for the now. But I'm going to give you these 3 top tips, and there's a couple of things in there that I think will help, hopefully, some of you that are in sales right now, or just really in just customer service as well. So you don't necessarily have to be in sales, but yeah. So number 1. Okay, shall we get up my slides? Shall I do that? Hold on, here we go. Bear with. Right, let me just put that into present mode. Now you can all see what I create things in. It's a good advert for them, isn't it? There are other platforms you can use. Okay, so can everyone see that? Can you just give me a quick thumbs up? Brilliant. Okay, so 3 top tips for selling events right now. Let's look at number 1, be an educator and an innovator. So what do I mean? I mean, do your homework. This is obvious, okay, but ever so crucial right now. Your customers will be feeling slightly lost, very nervous about the future, unsure about what to do, demotivated, stressed, and they'll be looking more than ever to their account managers for help and guidance right now. So it's really important that you research the trends in your particular sector, really know what's going on daily with news, really be present on social media platforms like LinkedIn, because there is some absolutely incredible resources on there right now to help you. And you should be sharing stories with them. You should be sharing good news with them. You should be sharing the not so good news with them, because they need to know what others are going through as well. They need to realize that it's not just them. They are, you know, they have a support around them as well. And that's really, really important. So understand what they've been through recently, I think, is one of the top things. So, and educating from your side. Second part of that, as we're still on tip number 1, but the second part of that is get your CRM up to date. Now, all too often we arrive on site as an external resource helping teams, and we really want to help them to the best of our ability. However, the data that we get given sometimes can be really out of date, which you know, does cause a little bit of an embarrassing situation at times when you're talking to the exhibitor, you know. So really understand the changes in perhaps people within their company, you know, positions changing, especially now. We all know, and you may have experienced it yourself, positions changing within organizations for, you know, as a result of the pandemic. So we really need to be engaged with our CRM systems right now. We have the time to do it right now. This is a top priority if you're in the sales department. So the third part of this tip, number one, the C part, is the opportunity to sell multi-level live and virtual solutions. Wow. All I'm going to say is you should be feeling excited about that. You shouldn't be saying negative stuff about that. Yes, I love to do what I do, which is sell face-to-face, and I'm truly, truly missing that. I have a passion for that. That's what I was made to do. Yet we are giving more value now to our customers more than ever. We have been pushed fast forward into this realm of multi-level selling, and we should be embracing it, and we should be saying yes to it in whatever way our organization wants to do that. But we are giving so much more value throughout the year now to our customers. It doesn't matter what size your virtual event is or what it is that you offer that's a virtual solution, yet I highly recommend you should start thinking about it, because you're going to get left behind if you're not. So there's a poll right now, and the question is your organization now incorporating a virtual event alongside your established event? Yes, no, or you're a bit undecided. Okay, numbers are going up. Okay, good. So we've got almost there. I think everyone's pretty much done. Yeah, good. So 63% of you are incorporating one alongside your live event. And when I say virtual event, I don't mean like all singing or dancing, you know, trying to replicate an exhibition, because we're never going to be able to do, you know, we're never going to be able to do that. Well, we may be able to, who knows, in the future. But I just mean, you know, offering more touch points throughout the year. This gives you a major excuse to get in touch with your clients. And I'm going to share those. Do I just share those results now, Nick? Is that how I do it? Perfect. So yeah, 63% yes, 16% no, and 21% undecided. And that's okay that you're undecided as well. If you're no, I'd be really interested to understand sort of the reasoning behind why. So maybe just pop something in the comments. We can perhaps discuss it once I've finished. So I'm going to whiz on forward if I can. Have I shared them? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to whiz on forward to point number 2, tap into emotional intelligence. Okay, so this is so important right now to be empathetic with our customers, to really understand them from that emotive side as well, and understand what they've gone through more than ever, because they need to believe that you as an organisation and as a person have them at the heart of your intentions and your motive. So Han touched on that earlier, actually. He asked the question, how are you really doing? And, you know, if you haven't been in touch with all your customers throughout this pandemic, then you need to start picking up the phone and having touch points with them that are non-sales related touch points, because we have to understand, we have to be intelligent in our thinking before we approach any topics of selling to a person. So number 3, be confident to approach the topic of the sale. Now, I know that there was a few weeks at the beginning of lockdown where it was absolutely inappropriate, so inappropriate to even think or touch on the sale. But you've got to, this is what I was saying just now, you've got to know where your customer is in their journey, so that you are fully aware of their situation, their preferences, and going back into thinking about what is their persona? What is this person's persona that I'm talking to? What do they prefer? How do they prefer to be spoken to? Are they a driver? Are they an expressive? Are they an analytical person? Do they need the data? What can I give them? Like personalizing their experience, as I've said 2 times already. It's so important. So I think they're my top tips, and collaboration, of course. I would say collaboration in so many different ways. Collaborate with your teams internally. And I know it's hard because some of you are working remotely. Some of you have now been lucky enough to go back into the office and social distance yourself, but you're in there in a group of people. Event directors, I would say, you know, obviously it's so important now that you take all of your teams as individuals, really get to know them and how they've responded and how they need you during this time as well. And I would say it's all about taking someone's best bits, helping them to do better, and their not so good bits, and helping them to do things differently. So that comes right down the funnel, from EDs to salespeople. Salespeople, that comes into your exhibitors as well, your advisors, your educators. And the last thing I'm going to say is that I'm so privileged to put into practice what I train and what I do on a daily basis when we are back live. I can't wait. I'm like literally itching to get out of my seat and get into an exhibition hall. And I'm absolutely privileged to be able to train what I do, but I do it every single day. So I can keep updating that. I can keep my own experience relevant to what I'm talking about. So that's a privilege for me. And I would say innovation, change, say yes to it right now, welcome it in. And I'm just going to see if I can switch my slide. Oh, no, just go back. So a little quote to end: the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. And that's one of my favorite quotes. And just lastly, we're really excited as the Rebook Masters of the exhibition industry to launch a Rebook Masterclass for you all. So it's about helping others right now. We've done a lot of stuff on our LinkedIn, so if you aren't following us, follow us, and we've got a free YouTube channel as well that you can follow. But our Rebook Masterclass, if anyone's keen, then get in touch with us. But thank you so much for the time today, and I'll hand over to Mr. Monks.
Perfect. Thank you, Helen. We've got some questions and comments coming in at the side. We'll get onto those all together at the end. Hopefully there'll be a lively discussion. But yeah, without further ado, handing on to Raoul.
Thank you, Nick. Just going to see if I am sharing my screen. I'm hoping that is working. Can I just get a thumbs up that you guys can see that? Fantastic. Okay, ladies and gents, lovely to meet you all. My name is Raoul Monks. I'm founder and director of Flume Sales Training. I'm going to take you through a brief amount of slides, which will hopefully give you by the end of this some takeaways to put into action with your sales teams immediately to drive revenue right now, whatever your situation. Just to give you a tiny bit of background, we set up Flume Sales Training in 2010. We work globally across the media and events industry to help their sales teams to adapt to today's buyer. And as we all know, buying right now has become tougher than ever, and sales right now has become tougher than ever. There's a takeaway at the end of this, which we can send through to you, which is an infographic for your teams around the biggest mistakes and the biggest behaviors you need to be driving right now to make it easy for your clients to say yes. So let me share some stuff with you. Sales has got tougher. We know this, but if you look up until 2018, before COVID, actually it was getting harder and harder to hit your target. So in 2018, the latest stat that is out there, only 43% of B2B sales teams actually hit their target. When you look at what's happening now, that's going to be falling off a cliff. And when you actually dig into the research as to why that was happening, everything is indicating that it's about the failure to adapt from sales teams to today's buyer and the difficulty that buyers have actually getting decisions driven through their business. So what I want to do is I want to do 3 things to try and help you guys. Number 1 is I want to take you through the main changes that are happening for buyers right now. Why is it tougher for your client to say yes to you right now? 2, I want to take you through some of the biggest mistakes you could make right now. There's 5. And then 3, I want to take you through 5 core behaviors, which are going to help your teams move from an old world approach to a new world approach. Should take about 6 or 7 minutes. So we called this the 3 secrets. The secret in my mind, the biggest secret to succeeding right now is a very, very simple one, which is to look at everything, and I mean everything, from your client's perspective. The biggest mistake you and your teams can make is to look at everything from your own perspective. Because of this whirlwind we're going through, the confusion, it's easy to start thinking about what are we going to sell and think we've got to hit our revenues, and that actually often creates the wrong behavior. Ultimately, the purpose of a salesperson and sales team is to make it easy to buy. If you can do that, then it becomes easier to sell. So to make it easy to buy, we have to step into the client's shoes. So let's have a look at what they're going through right now. This is any of your clients. And just to preface this, at Flume Sales Training, we focus 100% on the client's point of view. And recently we've started doing a lot of research into B2B buyers in events and why they're choosing and why they're not choosing one over another. 2 weeks ago, we ran a panel, which you can join if you want to go and watch the on-demand version. And we had B2B buyers in events talking about why they choose and why they don't choose. So I'm going to intersperse some of the things we found out from them within this. So your client's world, what's changed for them? We can understand what's changed for them. We can work out how we need to adapt as well. Number one, some of this will be obvious, some of it will be less obvious. Reduced budgets. Most of them have absolutely budgets that have been stripped away. And from that, actually any decision they have to make is getting more decision makers. So on average, it's 6.8 decision makers. But what's interesting that we're hearing from the buyers, from the sponsors you're trying to sell to, is actually the level of those decision makers has gone up. So we've got board members looking at every single type of decision, however big or small you think they may be. On top of that, that's leading to your clients, your buyers, finding it very difficult risk-wise. It's very difficult to make a decision because they don't want to get picked on themselves or lose their job. They don't want to make a mistake. And that is because they have to be driven to drive ROI in their business. They have to be able to prove it to get any decision through. And that's quite difficult for them. And on top of that, as you can see, it's quite a tough world for them. They're probably having and seeing a likely drop in demand for their products anyway, depending on their market. And they're probably struggling to hit their normal KPIs. What good looks like has changed. And what they should measure has become confusing, different things. They don't know what to measure right now. And on top of that, the way the audience are behaving has changed. You guys probably wouldn't have come on an UFI Connects session on Zoom as in your halls like you have done here 20 weeks ago. But actually now we're getting more used to this. The audience is changing the way they're behaving. And ultimately what it all leads to is the only thing your client needs, your buyer, that potential sponsor, to drive any decision through their business is a watertight business case as to why they've got to do this now. Ultimately, it's tougher than ever for your client to make and drive decisions in their business. So our role has to be to make it easy. So let's look at what doesn't work, and I'll introduce here what doesn't work right now and why, and I'll explain what our buyers talk to us about, and then I'll give you what behavior does work, and I'll introduce what we're hearing from these buyers with some quotes as well. Like I said, there's a takeaway at the end that you guys can get in touch with us for, which is the infographic, but I'll take you through them. When you have a listen to this, have a think, are you making this mistake? Are any of your sales teams making this mistake? Are your competitors making this mistake? Because hopefully you can do something with this and put it into action personally as a result of this 8 minutes. Okay, so there's 5 main ones. Number one, volume of activity. What we mean by that is just focusing on making as many calls, as many dials, as many emails, as many introductions as possible to clients. What we heard from the clients on our panel was that actually they get more and more, especially in the last 13, 14 weeks, people coming to them saying, we're the best, we're the biggest, please buy, please buy. They're getting blanket generic emails and intros, and what they've got a bigger radar than ever for people who are doing stuff for the wrong reasons. They can spot if it's been designed for them or designed for 1,000 other people. So what works? Old school was focused on volume. Now it's about tailored activity. What do we hear them say? A quote from one of the buyers who was from Viacom CBS. He talked about the most effective cut through from me comes through personalized introductions. Make it about me, not you. They care deeply about themselves, much more than they'll ever care about your solution, unfortunately. So by going in and talking about you, you're absolutely aiming at the wrong place. We have to make it about them. Mistake number 2. Just focusing on their company. What I mean by this is historically salespeople will go in and try and sell how working with your event will help to drive thought leadership, branding, leads for their company. But actually what's interesting, these people are so focused on themselves right now that actually just talking about how great what you're going to do is for their company doesn't resonate as well as focusing on their role first and then the company. So what I mean by that is these people, their motivators have become much more about security, keeping their job, making sure they're not making mistakes like we saw before. So the salespeople who are making the difference are first, and much like Helen and Han talk about, focusing kind of emotionally first into that person, but very much focusing on their role. Who are you? What do you do now? What's changed? What does good look like? What are your priorities? What are the challenges that you desperately need to solve now? Giving them airtime. Let me see what the buyers actually said. The panel talks about focus on the value of the conversation to me, not the value of the relationship, the value of the conversation. Give me stuff that's going to help me do my job better now. Strategic listening is more important than ever before. Helen talked about it before. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Elevate me in my role. Make me look good. If you can make me look good and I think this is going to work, I'll sell it onto my company with you. Salespeople who just focus on the product, going in and selling the new virtual event, going in and selling the new marketing solution. Like I said before, your clients don't care about the product. Sounds horrible, but it's a brutal truth. They care about themselves and impact. But also, when you look at why should a buyer, a marketer do anything right now and ever, there's only one reason. They should only do anything if it's going to have the right impact on the audience. If it is going to drive the audience to engage with them, they should do it. If it's not, they shouldn't. So by going in and just focusing about the product, it's talking the wrong language. They don't care about the product. When we heard from the marketers, they talked about that they came into 2020 with a plan as to how to engage with the audience. And the event was just one part of that. It's part of a campaign. They cared about engaging with the audience. We tend to talk about the event. What works, the behavior that works, is making it all about audience and client best practice. So audiences have changed. Clients care about how the audiences have changed and how to engage them. So the 2 things you need to be teaching, because it's all about teaching, not just asking questions, teaching and taking the hand of that client and saying, this is what we know about the audience and how they've changed and what works and what doesn't work for them. And this is what's working for other people like you in your role. It is all about, this is an interesting quote, all I care about right now is engaging the audience in the right way. They don't talk about platforms when you listen to the marketer. They talk about the impact on the audience and hitting their KPIs. So we need to be teaching it about that stuff to lead them to your platforms. 4th mistake, and we're nearly at the end, leaves the client to drive ROI. We did a summit on this yesterday with an audience perspective focus around how do you drive ROI, because the number one thing that your clients want is to know this is going to work for them. So if you are leaving it in the hands of the client to make sure whatever you're selling to them works, you are taking a huge risk. When you look at the research, 20% of the impact on ROI comes from what you guys do. 80% comes from what that client does. Now, the problem is if you don't drive ROI, back to Helen's point earlier, they're not going to rebook. And ultimately, if you want them to be with you next year, we've got to make sure that this is delivering. But as we know now, if you want them to even be able to buy this, they need to believe it's going to drive ROI. So what does work? Not leaving them, but leading. Leads the client to drive ROI. If you can work with that client to create processes, toolkits, which are designed to help them get better results from your marketing solution, it de-risks things. What did we hear from the clients? They said to us, de-risk the process. Don't take the risk of leaving it in the hands of your client, because ultimately the client wants to know what they're going to do is going to work. And that's the question they're going to get from the other 6.8 decision makers. If you have not created a process and toolkits to help them do it, it makes it difficult for them to say yes. Number 5 mistake, and we're right at the end. Relying on closing ticks, scarcity. If you don't do this now, someone else will take it. If you don't do this now, the price is going to go up. Whatever that is, often it's a scarcity trick. That doesn't work in any way the same way it used to, because got to do the tough work when they've bought into it. They've then got to sell on to 6.8 other people. What does work? Helping the client to navigate the decision-making process. There are 6.8 people they have to sell on to. That is where the hard work starts. What works? What we heard was there's more internal stakeholders with different motivations and objectives and objections. I want a toolkit to help me sell on. They want you to help them to convince the other people. They want you to be able to avoid with them the objections and overcome them. They want help selling on. Most salespeople sell the product to the person they've been speaking to and leave them to it. These guys were saying to us, you cannot do this because we cannot make a decision with that and you will not make any sales doing that. So what does this look like as a collective? New world behaviors. Tailor the activity personally, make it about them. Talk about their role first, find out how they're doing, find out what their new priorities are, their challenges, properly, deeply listen, and then help them sell onto the company. Don't just go in there and talk about your products. It's all about the audience. Teach them how the audience have changed, what the audience need to engage, and what's working and what's not working for other people like them. Don't just leave the client to the ROI, lead them to ROI by creating processes that help them drive the right results so they can prove it and justify it afterwards and rebook and come back. And then don't just use old school sales techniques in terms of the closing. Help them navigate the decision-making process by holding their hand and helping them see what are going to be the blockers, get into the head of the other stakeholders and create processes and templates and presentations that they can drop into their own templates to help them sell on. And if you want that in a one-pager, we can ping it over to you. It's very nicely designed, and it's designed for you guys to be able to just give it to your sales team so they can remember what not to do and what to do, how to move from old world sales approaches to new world. We're here to help as much as you need, guys, so give us a shout if there's anything we can do in terms of training, developing, coaching, any questions you've got, give us a call. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Raoul. That was great. Okay, I'm going to dive straight in with some questions. We've got a few. So first, I'd like to ask Helen Chater. So we're going to come to you first, and we're going to unmute your microphone. And if we can...
There you go, I'm here.
There you are. Hi, Helen.
Hello. Hi, thank you very much for coming to me to ask the question. I'm interested if anybody has any tips on how to reassure exhibitors that the visitors are going to come back in global travel retail. And the biggest concern I'm hearing is, are people actually going to travel to these exhibitions? Is there any evidence from anybody on the panel or any tips of how we can reassure people?
So Helen, you put your hand up. Do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I don't have tangible evidence for you, Helen, but I will say that it's important to be absolutely transparent with the customer that it's going to take some time to get the visitor numbers back to perhaps what they were previously. And, you know, it's good to be honest about that. However, it's good to then focus on, I think, the key objectives of your customer. Who is it that they specifically would want to see if they choose to exhibit in person at the live event? Who for them would really, really benefit their business and benefit their time at the live event? So it's focusing really on the quality of the audience and not necessarily the quantity, and trying to use that psychology with the exhibitor on the phone or on a Zoom call during the sales process of coming away from being obsessed with visitor numbers to really making them see that you genuinely care about who exactly for them specifically they would like to see, and doing your utmost best as organizers, working with your marketing team, working with the whole team to get the right people through the door.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much, Helen.
Raoul, you had something to add?
Yeah, just a small point. So when we had our panel last week of buyers, sponsors, what they talked about is the gap. So the gap between what's available now and what was available with live events. One point is they said that virtual will never replace live events. Okay. And secondly, what they said is that the gap that's there is that relationships are much more difficult to build in live virtual events, and that being able to kind of grow and really nurture that relationship is still drastically missing. And the point there is that if the client is seeing a gap between what is possible now and what will be possible when live events comes back, the audience will still have that as well. They will have that gap in terms of networking and building their relationships. So it's not going to come back immediately, and there will be people pushing back, but it will come back, because at the moment there is a gap between what your clients and the audience need and what they can get.
I would just say, sorry, on that as well. Look at what happened when we opened the shops. Like, and I thought that people would be discouraged from going to shop in Primark or wherever they shop, but I couldn't believe it myself, you know. So let's just remain positive, I think, and it's our responsibility as you know, ambassadors for the industry to really put the confidence into our clients and our customers.
Yeah, and Han, something to add?
Yeah, the last thing. Well, as I was saying in my short presentation, that we have to redefine what we already did. I mean, we were there for years, and our industry was good. Our industry was providing that business platform, and that has not disappeared. Maybe there are less people, probably. First, the travel bans have to go, because if there are travel bans, no one comes, and the travel bans go away, and people have to say, okay, I dare to go. What I hear a lot from clients is that they say, but probably there will be better people. So they have the ability to focus on the positives, that there will be well more qualified people on the show floor. And once you convey that they will come back. Not at once, as the rest of the co-speaker said, but they will come back.
Okay.
Yes, and I mean, just to add to that, obviously, you know, the travel bans is an important aspect to consider. If your show is primarily a local show, by that I mean a kind of national show or even a regional show in Europe, most of your visitors and exhibitors are local, then it's easier for them to get there. If you have a predominantly international show, for example, in Singapore, most of their shows are 80% international or more. That's a very different picture, and will take longer for those to come back. Okay, next question. We have a question from Audrey Ashworth, which is a very glamorous name. Sounds like a film star, Audrey.
Well, thank you for that. That's very nice. I don't know if you hear me well. We're all in favor of rebooking, of the rebooking process, and that's something we have implemented. The question is, how do we see things happening in the close future, knowing that clients have been with all the uncertainty we are having, clients are probably less willing to sign and to commit themselves in the future, the uncertainty that was related to the COVID.
Yeah, I guess that probably for me, seeing as it's focusing on the rebook. Yeah, I mean, we have to acknowledge that rebooking is increasingly becoming harder. Even before this pandemic, from my experience over 10 years, it definitely is something that is becoming harder and harder, because there's so much more out there for companies to tap into in terms of marketing themselves. There's so many more options for them. However, with regards to rebooking an event that's going to be happening post-pandemic, I think it has to be done extremely sensitively. It has to be perhaps rethought in terms of the practice, the strategy that you would use out there on the floor, the rules and regulations behind a customer signing and things like that perhaps do need to be looked at. The payment terms could perhaps be looked at. There's lots of options that can be reworked in the favour of both the organiser and the customer. So yeah, I think, you know, it is hard to rebook nowadays. It was even before this, like I said, and it's not going to be something that is going to become easier, because what we now have at our fingertips is this multi-level selling. So if you are doing things throughout the year and you're giving your customer that ROI, which leads on to the main event, the live event, and really progresses nicely in stages to that live event and puts the focus there at that end goal for your customer, then I think you can personalize and get some really great solutions going for them that incorporate both all of that multi-level sales solution. So yeah, it's complex, but it's totally doable.
Han, great. You want to add something?
Yeah, Audrey, I mean, you have to ask what is happening here. So a client has some hesitation to do the rebook. So you have to go back to the core. Why rebooking means that he has booked before. Why did he book before? What was the reason? And I'm come back to the intention. They wanted to go to a place where they could do business. If you focus on that, and if they're not, if they say, well, we're not going to with live events, where are they going to establish that business then? And if you have that conversation away from whatever way they're going to try to achieve that, you're in a much more deeper conversation, and then you might convince them, because probably the first fear is like, okay, it probably won't happen. But if you allow yourself a little bit more time and go in more deeply, you might convince them. There's no magic oil, but you might convince them there.
Yeah,
sorry. Thank you very much for your answers. That's very true that we have to see what gain they have in joining our events.
Yeah.
My only problem, sorry, that would be the one, is that I'm afraid they will wait to do that commitment instead of joining and engaging at an early stage. That's it. And
yeah, I mean, just to add to that, you know, we maintain that the exhibitions are the fastest of fast tracks for economic recovery for everybody. There was a very interesting point in the chat from Carla, who I'm going to ask to comment now, who said, look, don't be afraid. Carla's also an exhibition and sales training guru in our midst, was saying, don't be afraid to talk about money. You know, it is proven that exhibitions gives a better return on investment than other marketing channels. But Carla, you had another point as well. Do you want to jump in now? You should be not muted.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Hello to everybody. I wanted to add something to the questions, how to bring the visitors back to stage, to quality visitors, to attract the exhibitors. And well, I don't want to give an answer right now on the point, because there are many possibilities, but I think every show can learn a lot from hosted buyer shows, because they have a lot of measures to bring the quality visitors to the right exhibitors. Of course, they have a complete different concept, but to learn from them. You don't have to pay everything all the time, like a lot of hosted buyers are doing, or a lot of organizers are doing for the hosted buyers, but we can learn a lot from them. So my tip is, look what they are doing, and then you find a lot of possibilities to bring quality visitors to your show. And that, of course, is one of the reasons an exhibitor says, well, if they are all there, I have to come, I cannot stay away. Thanks, Nick.
Perfect. Thank you, Carla. So we've reached an hour, but I'm gonna go on for another 5 minutes if you'll permit me. I'm English, so I hate not being on time, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna keep going. So thank you for staying with us. Helen, you had something to add?
Just had a quick thing to add to that. If we're using the right incentives for the customers at the right times throughout the year, then that is obviously an encouraging aspect of the sale. So, you know, you might have to readdress your incentives, but generally, as a rule of thumb, most organisers obviously incentivise their customers to book early, and they do that in money terms. So they do that by offering them the best saving at that time. So, you know, addressing all of those ins and outs and really getting your rebook strategy down and how that's going to work for you revenue-wise, and how that's going to work for the sales cycle throughout the year, how that's going to increase. You know, it will motivate people to book early if they know that they can make the best saving. And we need to get away from that culture of doing last minute, you know, deals and discounts. And we need to sell in the value of what we're selling them. And we need them to know it, and we need them to believe it. So that's our job as educators, and what I was saying earlier. And then the last point that I wanted to make is using tech now and using innovation to all this innovation that's been happening so recently to evaluate exposure at the event. You know, we've got amazing companies and coming up with really great tech that we can tap into and data that we can share with our exhibitors to give them more confidence.
Thank you. Next question, I'd like to call up Olivia Milan, who's asked, well, I mean, she didn't have the dirty word of discounts, but she had an interesting question about how flexible should we be? So Olivia, if you can hear me, I'm going to try and unmute you. Yeah, oh, there's 5 Olivia Mans in the chat. How do I know which one to unmute? Are you there? Never mind. I'll ask you a question. She said, so should we be offering, should we be reviewing and offering more flexibility in our sales conditions, i.e. in terms of payments and others?
I think it's something to consider, and I think.
Yes, I'm there.
Oh, hello.
Was that your question, or was there something else?
No, I violate the question.
Okay, sorry, carry on, Helen.
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, reassessing your strategy and reassessing what's best for the now, and looking at each customer's individual circumstances will pay for the future. For sure, you need to be, yes, I just think simply, yes, we need to be flexible as organisers. We need to be thinking outside the box and what we previously have done. Ra?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. We did a summit on, a webinar on secret selling virtual events, which I know is slightly different from what we're looking at here. But there was a question that came up within that around value versus price and how do you price things right now. And I think one of the mistakes that could be made is to really buckle under clients who say, well, if you're looking at something like a virtual event, that doesn't cost you as much to set up. So actually we should get a cheaper price, and try and bring prices down to get people in the future for these events when they happen again. The way that I look at it, and I appreciate you might have to move a little bit on price, but the way I look at it is it should be about the value. So it should be very much about the audience, right? So the audience, what does the audience mean to the client? What's the audience worth to the client? If you can get an audience who are ready to buy, who are going to be pushed down the funnel and can turn into a lifelong client, what is that going to mean for your client? And taking it away from the actual product you're selling and actually realizing the only reason they've ever bought an event or will ever buy anything in marketing is to influence the audience who are going to make them money. So trying to focus much more on that audience as a reason why that price shouldn't move, as opposed to the platform you're delivering.
Han, was your hand up, Han, or was that just a
No, it was just a gesture.
Okay. So next question, I'd like to jump to Paul Grinnell, who'll be talking to us from sunny Saudi Arabia. Paul, are you there? And can we unmute you? Paul?
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, really through this process, my question has been answered, and very well. The only obstacle that we face regionally here in the Middle East is that a lot of people bought on price, but also there wasn't much selling. There was more buying by the customer going on. I think Raoul touched on this, which is the old school of sending out your broad-based emails and hoping some of it sticks. The challenge we have regionally is getting the sales teams to be more consultative in their sales contacts. And as the panel has already identified, is clarifying what the needs of the individual customer are, not just looking for a silver bullet that will solve all of their problems in one go. And I'm saying that from the salesperson's perspective. Certainly the people I work with, they're looking at having one statement or one email or one comment that will win them the business, whereas they're more deterred by sitting with a challenging client and not being rushed through the presentation, and getting to the point so forgive me for not getting to mine. But they end up sort of gabbling through the pitch just so they can get to the close, and they haven't really done the groundwork to be able to close the business. And the challenge that I faced is having the salespeople understand that you can't have a 3-course meal by going straight to dessert. And you know, this is more of a regional issue than it is perhaps with my colleagues around the world, that it's the quality of how they go through the sales process, as opposed to just saying to somebody, here's my brochure, how much space do you want?
Yeah, interesting. Han, do you want to chip in there?
This is not a regional thing. My country counter is at 38 countries around the world, from east to west, and I encounter the same everywhere. Even if I'm in South America, North America, Europe, the Near East and the Far East, it's the same everywhere. Salespeople, and I'm one of them, and we are lazy, and we tend to rush to the end. And the groundwork, I love the word groundwork. For the recent years, I've been developing sessions on that. And then people say, but it's not training. For 2 days, you're talking about all the requirements. I say, yeah, 2 days for one market. This is 2 days in a whole sales life, and you have to spend that at that time. And once they've done that, yeah, then they're off to and win more deals. And then they come up with a possible list of 30, 40, or 60 possible requirements. And I still people say, no, but I only ask 3 or 4. I say, no, do I have to ask them all? I say, well, yeah, that's the checklist. When you fly off with a plane, yeah, because when life and death is, because for the insurance, you do the whole checklist. But yeah, sales, well, you know, if we fly, we don't fly. You have to go through the whole checklist, and you have to create a checklist. And the creation of the checklist, yeah, that's of the utmost important. We cannot do that on a Zoom session, but it has to be done. So I agree.
Perfect. Raoul?
Just very quickly, just a couple of stats to put out there around that. When you look at the research into what works and what doesn't work in sales, 53% of why clients buy off you is down to the sales process that you actually deliver them. 9% is price, 19% is brand, 19% is the products and service, 53% is the sales experience. What works in sales in terms of the experience, relationship builders who just go out and try and take orders and be nice to people to get the business, only 4% of relationship builders actually are the strongest salespeople. The strongest salespeople out there are the ones who push back, who create constructive tension, who teach, tailor, and take control. And that's because the client needs to feel like every conversation is worth paying for in itself. They will make a judgment on whether what you're selling them will work based on the experience they get from the salesperson. And at Flume, what we train is a very simple process, which is change, choose, champion. So ultimately, your client will be in their status quo thinking, I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. I'm doing it the way I'm thinking at the moment. Stage 1 is I've got to change from that thought process to understand what my real needs are and why I need to change. Section 2 is I need to choose this provider because it's going to have the best impact. Section 3 is champion. I'm going to sell this onto my business with the help of that person. And that simple buying process creates a really powerful sales mechanism, which is help your client change, help them choose, help them champion in their business. And that's what the strongest salespeople are doing, in my opinion.
Brilliant. Perfect. Raoul, look, I mean, I really apologize. We have other questions, but we've run out of time. Mahmoud, I was going to come to you, but we have run out of time. But hopefully, look, that was really inspirational. Some great tips and advice from our 3 speakers. They've all been posting their links of how to get in touch with them down below, except Han, who's been very, very, very modest on that sense. I just disagree with Han. You said that, you know, you can't have a 3-course, you can't have pudding first and 3-course meal. Try telling my kids that. Okay, so thank you very much. You've been great. As I think we've mentioned in the chat, we will send a recording of this we'll email it to everybody probably by tomorrow, and it will have the slides as well from the speakers. You've got their contact sessions there as well, and there'll also be a survey, so please take part in the feedback survey. Any questions that you have, please forward to media@ufi.org and we can send on to our speakers. And please feel free to share this session online with the hashtag UFI Connects. So my final duty is to, in fact, just to let you know about one other, the Connects we have next week is on the Brazilian market, which is obviously the 9th largest economy in the world and by far the largest market in South America. That'll be in Portuguese. So, se você fala português, perfeito. So now, never mind. Final thanks to our diamond sponsors, TSED, Qatar National Tourism Council, Shenzhen World, and Freeman. I'm wishing you all very good rest of the day. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.